And then Peter throws in something that seems very odd. Verse 23. I see that you are poisoned by bitterness and bound by iniquity. So I want to examine that phrase, poisoned by bitterness, because when I see a phrase like poisoned by bitterness, that makes me think there's a problem inside of Simon. It's definitely been put there as a poison, something designed to kill him, but bitterness to me seems like the wrong word. Maybe he's poisoned by ambition. Maybe he's poisoned by ignorance. Maybe he's straight up poisoned by sin, pride, arrogance. But bitterness holds a piece of pain in it, right? I mean, if you're bitter, you've been hurt. You've been wronged. You've been misjudged, mistreated. Bitterness is hurt gone to seed. I mean, someone has so deeply wounded you somehow, some way, that your response to the world is to bristle. You put up your guard. You throw your wall up when people want to get close to you. You're bitter against their actions. You're bitter against their existence. Maybe you don't want to talk to them. You don't want to see them. You don't want to be around them. To me, on the outside looking in, this seems like an extreme thing for Peter to say to Simon. You are poisoned by bitterness. That there's something inside of you that bristles, something inside of you that is hurt, something inside of you that has a problem. Okay, it's one thing for me to take something from the Bible and try to put myself into it and try to understand it. That's a dangerous thing to do because I wasn't there, first of all. And secondly, I didn't see anywhere in here where this was written about Paul White or to Paul White. This is about Simon, between Peter and Simon. And Paul White's a Gentile who doesn't have Jewish background. And Peter is a Jew who has Jewish background. And he understands things about the Torah, about the writings of Moses, that I can only claim to understand, but can't really understand. And so a lot of times in the New Testament, when you see something, and a lot of the things that look foreign to us or that look odd to us only look that way because we don't have the working knowledge of the Torah that these guys had. And what I mean by the Torah is, of course, the first 5 books of the Bible: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Once you get past about midway through Exodus, it's also what most modern Christians would call the boring parts of the Bible. Somewhere around Exodus 20, after you've finally got to the 10 Commandments, and you get past the Charlton Heston part, you really just want to get through the Red Sea and then deal with the 40 years. Did you catch the Charlton Heston part? You deal with the 40 years, and then you got to go through Numbers, where there's a bunch of people getting numbered. That's a real shocker, just based on the title of the book. If you ever wonder what the book of Numbers is about, get ready. It's a lot of people getting numbered. And then Leviticus, where there's dietary laws and sanitary laws and sacrificial laws and how you're supposed to bleed out animals before you can sacrifice them and what the altar's supposed to look like and what the meal's supposed to look like, and it just gets laborious. And then you get to Deuteronomy, and lo and behold, Moses tells it all over again. Starts at the top of the book and says, let me remind you of the stuff you forgot about. And he starts rehearsing the law, everything you just skipped in your day-to-day reading from the middle of Exodus all the way through Leviticus. Deuteronomy just runs it right back at you. But if you're patient and you're digging and you're mining and you're looking, because it's not easy to mine for the good stuff, right? If you're mining for gold, you're going to sift through a lot of rock. And so sometimes if you're going to go mine for the gold of the Old Testament, you have to sift through a lot of rock. But if you'll watch for it, you'll catch these little glimmers. Go with me to Deuteronomy chapter 29. Here's where you get an advantage tonight. We're not going to mine through the entire book of Deuteronomy. I'll just go take you to the gold nuggets, okay? You can do your own mining and sifting another time. Go read through all these other chapters. That'll run you Deuteronomy chapter 29. The old covenant is being renewed at a place called Moab. Moses is re-rehearsing the covenant that God made with Israel. And starting at about verse 2, he rehearses it, he says it over. And I'll pick up the reading in verse 16. Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 16. For you know that we dwelt in the land of Egypt, and we came through the nations which you passed by. And you saw their abominations and their idols, which were among them, wood, stone, silver, gold. so that there may not be among you man or woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away today from the Lord our God to go and serve the gods of these nations, and that there may not be among you a root bearing bitterness or wormwood. There's your gold nugget. It's sifting through a lot of rock to get to that moment. Let me recap what Moses says to Israel. We came out of the land of Egypt, and God marched us through other people's property. And those other people came out and they fought us, and God gave us great victory. And as we walked through other people's property and God gave us great victory, what you saw as you walked through other people's property is you saw the way they worship. And they worshiped idols made out of gold, and they worshiped idols made out of silver, and idols made out of stone, and idols made out of wood. And he names 4 elements, 4 things, 4 structural, 4 tangible, physical things. Just like this little lectern is tangible. It is physical. You can touch it. If I hit it, you can hear it. It really exists. Israel's walking through nations and looking at their temples and looking at their golden gods and their silver gods and their stone gods and their wood gods. They're tangible gods. And at night, the Israelite lays his head on his pillow in his tent and he prays to a God he cannot see. And he prays to a God he cannot touch. And he prays to a God he cannot smell. He prays to a God he cannot taste. But when he walks past the Philistine church, their temple, he sees a golden god, and a silver god, and a wooden god, and a stone god, ornate, beautiful statues and sculptures, arenas to other gods, temples to other gods. And God says, let me reread that verse from Deuteronomy 29 verse 18. So that none of your men, women, family, or tribes' hearts will turn away from the Lord to go and serve the gods of these nations. What are the gods of these nations? They're gold, silver, stone, and wood. That there may not be among you a root bearing bitterness or wormwood. Let's leave wormwood on the back burner for a moment. That's a gold nugget we're going to get to. We'll polish him off in a second. But for right now, think about that word bitterness, because that's the exact same phrase Peter uses on Simon in Acts chapter 8. The phrase that didn't mean anything to us when we read it. Why would Peter say to Simon, you have poison bitterness inside of you? Because in Peter's religion, Judaism, remember, Christianity is this new branch right now of Judaism. We're in Acts 8. We're not in Acts 10. Peter's not convinced that the house of Cornelius can receive the Holy Ghost. Right now, we're having a hard time just getting the apostles to leave Jerusalem. So as far as they're concerned, Jesus is for Jews. Are we still together? All right, this just progressive. I want to make sure, I don't want anybody to walk out and go, this guy said Jesus was only for Jews. Because that's what happens too. We walk in together through this text. But at this point in Acts 8, yeah, that's all he thought it was for. And so Jesus says to Simon, you have a poison of bitterness, because in Peter's religion, he has Deuteronomy 29 in his head. And in Deuteronomy, not literally Deuteronomy 29, but he has the writings of Moses. And in his writings, the root of bitterness is when people would walk through the lands of their enemies and they would see golden and silver and wooden and stone gods, and they would begin to long for the tangible gods of this world and become bitter that the God they had didn't look as shiny and as pretty and as touchable as the gods of this world. And it would create a bitterness inside of them that somehow they were getting ripped off. Somehow I'm getting cheated. Now, just to give you an idea how powerful that this is. Judaism, when they get settled in their land, they get themselves a temple. A big temple. A beautiful temple. Solomon builds one that by modern financial standards is over $1 trillion to erect. It is covered in gold and marble. It's spectacularly gorgeous. It'll be destroyed by the Babylonians late in the Old Testament. Herod will build one that history says was even better. The one Jesus went in and cleaned out was spectacular beyond measure. But this temple is based on the tabernacle of the wilderness. And at the temple, you've got the Ark of the Covenant. You've got the brazen laver, and you got this golden candlesticks, and you got the shewbread, and you got the incense, and you got priests. Lambs are dying, and bullocks are being killed, and incense is being waved by priests. And when the Israelites get into the land, they make very tangible and invisible God. You can see lambs dying. You can smell the burnt offering. You can touch the water in the brazen laver. You can smell the incense. You can see the smoke.